Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm gonna share how I set up this Linux machine for the type of DevOps works that I do. So if I open the terminal and show you the NeoFetch, you'll see that I'm running Arch Linux with Hyperland and my window manager is Sway. So the terminal that I'm using is KT and ZSH as my shell framework. Apart from that, as you know that it's a Hyperland setup, so if I close this and try to open multiple terminals, you could see that the type of animation that it happens. So yeah, it has that cool features as well, and if I do this, it all I can move freely and whatever I want to do. And there are a bunch of types of these type of things like bars. If I go into those, you would be able to see that I have a bunch of types of bars as well. I can change all of these bars from bottom to top. So if I right now I have this gardenia, and if I go to the bottom sleek, if I click on that, it will come down here as well. Not only that, if I want to change something to another different one, I can also do that. If I go to the camellia top, you'll see that it changes to this one. So there's a lot of flexibility that you get with Hyperland as well. So the way I'm gonna show you all of this is, first I'm gonna install the distro and then install all of the DevOps related tools and set up the system. One more thing that I need to tell you is that right now, as you saw, that I'm installing the Arch Linux over here, but on this particular video I'll be using EndeavourOS, so that you as a viewer, or if you're a newbie or beginner into Arch or any kind of Linux related system, it will be easier for you to just get started and get to this exact setup without any type of issues or anything, so that you can quickly get started. And so right now I'm inside the BIOS, where I have named my SSD as EndeavourOS, which we will be used to boot up our EndeavourOS. And in the third one, you can see that UEFI USB partition 1, which is the USB stick that I have put it up with the EndeavourOS, which we will use to install the actual EndeavourOS. So I'll just go ahead and select that, hit enter. So here you see that we have 3-4 options. The first one is the one, basically if you are having no NVIDIA card in your system, then you can go with this default one. And if you're having an NVIDIA driver like mine, then you can select the one, which I'll be selecting. And this is only for all the latest drivers. So if it's 1650, starting from that, you can just use that. So I'm gonna use that default NVIDIA one, then hit enter, and it's gonna boot into the EndeavourOS live preview. And this is how the live preview of the EndeavourOS looks like. And you can see that it is asking that I don't have any internet connection right now, so we'll just go ahead and hit exit. We'll ignore that. Here in the bottom corner, and here I'm gonna select the network that I want to connect with and keep the password, and it's gonna connect to the internet. Now that we have connected to the internet, I'll go and click on this install system button, and this is going to open up the Calamares installer, and from there we will install the actual EndeavourOS in our system. And here you can see that it is asking for me to select the driver for the Ethernet card that I have, and I am using the default one, which is the latest one, which is R8169. And if you are having a newer generation laptop, most probably the chances is that you are also having this default one. So just click on the default one, and that's it, and it's gonna open up this particular console. And you can pretty safely ignore all of these options except the start installer. So you just go ahead and click on this start the installer button. It's gonna ask you if I want to continue online or offline, and if you want to do the same setup that I have, obviously you have to choose online, because there will be some options that you don't get when you choose offline. So we'll just go ahead, select online, and there you go. This is the Calamares installer for the EndeavourOS. I'll just go ahead and hit next. Here I'll choose the system language as English, which is US, not India. So select the US one, which is this one. Then okay, go to next. Here I'll select the default keyboard layout, hit next. You see that we have to select a desktop environment, but because we want to use Hyperland, we will select this no desktop environment. And if you don't want to use Hyperland, you can choose any of these, but if you want to use Hyperland, just hit no desktop and hit next. And here are some of the options that we have to go through, and so that you got a fresh installation. So some of the things that you can ignore while installing. So for example, in the EndeavourOS applications section, remove the EndeavourOS theming. You don't need the EndeavourOS apps info. You don't need the lock tool as well. Yes, you kind of need the EOS package list, but you can also ignore that if you want, but it's okay to have a package list from EndeavourOS. Then I don't need the reflector simple. I don't need the welcome as well. That's pretty much it. And go to the next option, which is the recommended application. Here you can see you have a bunch of options that you can choose if you really want or not. And these are some of the options that actually comes preloaded. So it makes it easier for you not to go through them and then install. So I'm just going to keep it as it is. Then Here you see there's one option, Firefox language package. Here if you go, you have this Firefox, the international version. You can safely check that as well. And then in the firewall you see that you have all these options. You can also keep them. That's pretty much it. So just go ahead and hit next, and you can see it shows that I have to choose a bootloader. And it's a kind of fact that if you're going with any kind of system, systemd bootloader kind of sucks. So that's why just choose the grub bootloader, and it's actually safe to use the grub bootloader instead of the systemd boot. It gives you unnecessary headaches. So just simply select the grub bootloader and hit next. Here you have the option to select the storage device. I'm gonna select the default one that I just said, the Kingston Endeavour OS, and I'm gonna hit the erase disk and no swap. I choose the swap with Hibernate, and you have option to select the ext4 as well as Btrfs, but I prefer ext4 because with this particular system that I have and with the SSD that I have seen that for me ext4 works much better than Btrfs, but your system. But generally if you're not sure about that, just safely choose ext4 and then hit next. You don't have to do any kind of experiment with this, because if you do, then you have to do this thing all again. So just select ext4 and move to the next option. Here you just put all of your details like name, then what is the username that you want to log in with, and the password. So let me just do that real quick. Now that I've given all of the details that it needs, now I can just go ahead and hit next, and here you can see a summary of all the things that's going to do, and just hit install. Now install now, and it's gonna install that. So you can also see the logs here, and it's gonna take like 10 minutes or so, and once it's done you'll be able to see that it shows you a reboot button, and we can go from there. As you can see that the installation has successfully done. Now I can just hit the restart button and hit next or done. It's just gonna do the restart, and here you can see that it is asking me to select the boot device, which in this case I'll select the Endeavour OS and hit enter, and it's gonna boot into this Endeavour OS. And there you go, it is asking me to log into the system, and because remember that we did not select any desktop environment, and that's why we don't have anything. It's just a blank screen with a TTY, means this is a terminal, right? So I'm gonna give all the login details and login. So my username is Archie and password, and then there you go, I'm inside the Endeavour OS. So if I just do NeoFetch, you see the first option, which is NeoFetch. I'm gonna install that and give the password, asking me to proceed with the installation. I say yes, and if I do NeoFetch now, and there you go, you can see that it's a Endeavour OS. So now that we have our Endeavour OS installed, now it's the time for us to install the Hyprland with this way window manager, and it's actually easy. So there's a pretty cool .file setup already built by a guy called Jakulit. So I'm gonna use his setup, and this is the one that I'm talking about. So I'm just gonna git clone that particular repository and show you there. So the way we git clone is git clone and the name of the particular repository. In this case, https then github.com/jakulit/arch-hyprland and hit enter, and it's gonna clone into this Arch Hyprland repository into the folder named Arch Hyprland. Just go into that Arch Hyprland, and now you can see that we have all these files, and you can see that we have this particular file named install.sh, which we are actually interested in. So if in your case it's not in green color, what you just need to do is just run this particular command called chmod space +x and then install.sh. So what essentially it's doing is that it's giving it the permission, which is executable permission, and if you hit enter then do ls-l, then you can see that it's in green color obviously, and that means that now this particular shell file or this script can be executed. So the only thing that you have to do is actually execute this particular shell file, which in my case that is ./install.sh, and if you do that, it's just gonna go ahead and install the Hyprland with this way window manager, and that's it. You just have to follow up with all the questions that it says and answer that, and it's just gonna install that. So let's just go through that. I just hit enter, and here you can see that it is asking me to confirm that it's gonna do a full system update and then reboot, and then if I want to proceed with that or not. So I'm gonna hit yes and then enter. And do I want to use the preset setting that they give, yes or no? In this case, yes. And if you are gonna use this from the next time, or you feel that you are comfortable, you can choose no and then choose all the preferences. But what I've noticed that even if you select yes, it gives you a pretty good setup with the base minimal configuration. So it's good that you select yes and hit enter, and it's gonna just do all of these things. Now it's just asking me to give the password. Let me do that, hit enter, and now it's just gonna do a full system upgrade, and from there it's gonna install the Arch Hyperland, and we just have to wait for it. So it's gonna take probably like 15 minutes or so, and from there we can go ahead and proceed with it. The main Hyperland installation has been successfully done. Now it is asking me that do I want to install a SDDM theme. So it's the SDDM theme is like the one that you use to log into your actual system, right? So the theme that you first see when you boot up, so that is what basically SDDM theme is in layman's term. So do you want to use that? And of course you would want to use that, because remember that we did not select any desktop environment. Now even if you say no, it gives you another option that if you want to use the GTK or not. But SDDM is actually good, so I'm just gonna hit yes and then enter. Now it's gonna install a theme which is called Tokyo based. Now the SDDM theme configuration has successfully got installed. Now it is asking me for my password to confirm that I actually want to use the OhmyZSH for the My Terminal framework, right? So I'm just gonna give the password and confirm, and it's just gonna confirm and install all the Hyperland dots basically. And here you see that it is asking me that do I want to keep the current layout. Remember that in the CalMS installation, when we started, we actually selected the default US layout. So I'm just gonna hit yes and select that, hit enter. Now it's asking me that by default the configurations for the time is in 24-hour format. Do I want to change it to 12-hour? I would say yes and hit enter. Now that is asking me basically that the monitor resolution that I have, if it's 1080p or not, because mine is 1080p. So I'm just gonna hit 1, and if it's in your case, if it's more than 1080p, like 2K 4K whatever it is, more than 1080p, you can select the 2, but for me it's 1. Hit enter. Now everything is completed. Last question where it asks that do I want to download the wallpapers, yes or no. By default it gives you some wallpapers, but you can also download if you want, and they have some pretty good collections. So I'll just hit yes, and it's just gonna download some of the wallpapers that they provide. I mean this particular dot file from Arch Hyperland based. So it's just downloading all the wallpapers, so I'll just wait for it to finish. And here you can see that the whole installation has successfully completed. Now I can use Hyperland, but before that I have to reboot. And remember that it's just asking you, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to. The thing is that if you say no and just shut down your computer, do whatever it is, whatever the configuration has been done, it's just going to get wiped out. So do this must that you have to select yes and just reboot the computer, and it's just gonna boot into your normal SDDM theme. That's it. And one more thing, that for me this whole installation took me around 15 minutes because I have a 1 Gbps internet speed. That's why it's pretty fast for me. But in your case it might take more than that time depending upon the internet speed that you have. So yeah, it might take even 50 minutes as well to 1 hour depending upon the internet speed. So let's just hit enter yes, and it's just gonna reboot to the SDDM login, and we can log into that screen again to the actual EndeavourOS with the Hyperland setup. And you can see that we have successfully came into our graph, and I'm just gonna select the EndeavourOS Linux and hit enter, and it's putting into the Hyperland. So we'll just wait for it, and there you go. This is the actual SDDM theme. It's a Tokyo theme, they are naming it. So I'm just gonna give my password. You see, that's my new OS with the keyboard layout as US, and this is how the OS looks. And if I go into terminal and do a neofetch real quick, you can see that I am running the EndeavourOS with the Hyperland and window manager as Sway. So the terminal that I'm using is Kitty. So this is the base setup. Now from here we will do all of our DevOps related tools installation and the things that I do personally. and set up everything from here. So that's it. This is the actual installation. Now let's move on to the installation of all the DevOps tools. So this is how the Hyperland with Arch Linux looks like. And just to show you what are the things that you can expect is if you press super plus H, then it's gonna show you the key bindings details page where you can find like all of the key bindings as well as what they do. And now you can find that you can print the screen using super plus print key, and then you can also use the screenshot region, then power menu, full screen, and a bunch of other options like super key plus enter, then that opens terminal like this. So that's really neat. And you can also do a Google search using Rofi, which is super plus S. So if you do this, it's just gonna open a Google search. Here you can search like current temperature, for example, and hit enter. It's gonna open that as well, but I'm not gonna open, I just cancel that. And then you have closed the active window, and then you can also close a specific window as well, clipboard manager, a bunch of other options. You can just look into this later. That's pretty much it about the commands that you can have. If you just do alt plus super key and B, then it's gonna bring up this waybar layout where you can select all the types of layout, and the one that I generally use is this gardenia top, and it's gonna change this to this type of waybar. Now if I go to the super plus W key, and it's gonna open up the wallpaper where I can choose a bunch of wallpapers that is preloaded, but I can also provide my wallpapers as well. You can see that they have a pretty good collection. So that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna select this Techno Geek one. I really like it. The one more thing that I did, I just want to talk about that, is if I go into this particular path, which is .config hyper user configs monitor.conf, you can see that here is these two lines, but generally you will see that it's only one line with auto preferences. That means whatever configuration you have, it's just going to be there. But what this is actually, if you use dual monitor setup like I do, then you have to specifically mention which monitor is what and their monitor hertz, right? Refresh rates basically, and then just the way you want to configure. So layout basically 1920 into 0 means it's in the right side, and 0 into 0 means it's in the left side. So depending upon which setup you want, you can choose all of them. And if you're still confused about that, let me know and I'll just respond to that in the comment section. And if I go back, you can also check using hyperctl monitors command that what are the monitors that you have. Right now you can see that I have a HDMI connector as well as the main laptop monitor. So these are the two monitors that I'm connected with right now, and these are the specifications. Now I will install all of the tools that don't need any type of configuration, and then we'll proceed with the tools that I need with the configuration. So first I'm going to install Zathura, which is a PDF viewer that I use most of the time actually. So if I do EA Zathura, it's gonna install this Zathura, the document viewer, and I'm gonna install that, give the password, and there you go, it installed the Zathura. Now if I just to Zathura, you can see it's opening this particular program where I can do whatever I want, but right now obviously I didn't select any PDF file, that's why it's not showing anything. So I'm just gonna exit that. As you just saw that I used this program called EA to install Zathura, and not just Zathura, I basically use EA to install any program in Arch repository. So what I'm gonna do is set up an alias so that every time I install any program, I don't have to confirm all of those things every time. So I can just just do a shorter term. So the way that I do that is I'm gonna go into the ZSH file. So here you can see that we have this a bunch of things, but I am not interested in any of this. The one that I'm gonna do is gonna delete this particular line, and here I'm gonna write the alias, which in my case is alias y then no confirm. That's it. So whenever I have to install a program, I can just do y and then the program name. So save that. Now if I just do source zshrc, it's gonna source the terminal, and now I can just do EA, and you see that it's like doing the thing whatever. Like if you just do EA, it's just gonna update that system, right? So it's just gonna doing the same thing. Now there are some other aliases that I also have, so I'm just gonna show you real quick. So again, I'll open the zshrc config file. I call this as miscellaneous. So here I have this thing called alias. Then I use doc as for my Zathura program. So every time I have to open Zathura, I can just do doc and then open whatever file I want to open it. And then I also have setc for my ZSH configuration. So I'm gonna use that as an alias ZC, and I use NeoVim, so I'm just gonna do NVM, and it's gonna open the ZSH-RC file in NeoVim every time I want to modify something in the ZSH config. So that's pretty neat. And then I also have some more aliases, and that's like sourcing the actual ZSH-RC after I actually modify anything. So that's the SZC, so source ZC, right? And the way it's very simple as the command goes, which is source and then ZSH-RC. I'm gonna save this. Now just to show you that everything works, what I'm gonna do is close this terminal and open a new terminal. And if I just do SZC, you can see that it sourced the ZSH-RC. And not just that, if I just do doc, it's gonna open the Zathura again. So you see that these things works. Now I also use Notion as well, so I'm just gonna use Notion. It's note-taking app basically, and this is the one that I am looking for. Notion app, not the first one. It's a tiling window manager, which is not the one where I'm looking for. The one is Notion app. I'm just gonna install that, and see now this is not asking me anything. Like it's just directly doing its thing. I'm not even typing or entering into anything. It's just automatically, without my confirmation, it's downloading it. So I just have to give the password, and that's it. Now that the Notion is installed, now I'm gonna install one more tool called Obsidian. So it's basically kind of a think and write type of note-taking app as well. So I'm just gonna use Obsidian. So Obsidian, this is the term. This is the one that I'm gonna use. So one, and there you go. So if I just open the Ropey, and you can see, if I search for Obsidian, this is the one that I'm talking about. I'll go through this maybe later, but let's just go through all the things that I actually installed. And there's one more program called NCDU. So I'm gonna install that as well, NCDU. So it's basically a disk utilization management, you can see. So it analyzes my disk, and actually I use this in my servers mostly, but I'm just showing you that this is one thing that I always use. So hit enter, and it's there. And if I just do NCDU, hit enter, you see it's just scanning, and it shows literally what are the things I have. So right now the most amount of memory that is consuming, it's under pictures. So if I go into that, you can see that there are wallpapers, and these are all the wallpapers that I am like talking about. So right, like if I just do super plus W key, these are all wallpapers, and this is where it's like there. So yeah, it's pretty neat. And it's just, if you hit backspace, it goes back. If you hit enter, it goes right side, and that's it. You can also navigate using left arrow, right arrow keys as well. So that's pretty neat, where I can find everything, like which amount of which particular directory is actually taking the most amount of memory. So that's pretty much it. And if I go out of it, I can just queue, and it goes out of it. And that's about NCDU. Now there's one more tool that I kind of use, but it's not really a tool or something that I have to install, but it's more like a server side thing. So what it is cheat.sh. So if I just do cheat.sh / something like kubectl or Docker, let's say Docker. Right now it's giving me this particular red color. That means something is wrong, but I have to use curl before this particular command. So if I just hit curl and cheat sheet.sh Docker, so it's gonna show me all the cheat sheets about Docker. Even if Docker is not installed in my computer, right, it's gonna show me that these are the things, that particular commands are there in Docker. Not just that, I can also use Kubernetes, or I can just say K8. I guess I never tried, but K8 should work. Yeah, so I have all these things. Like let's say instead of K8 is, I can go with something like Terraform, for example, right? And it's gonna show me that all the Terraform related command. Not just that, if I want to just as a cheat sheet, I want to see all the commands that I have in Ansible. I can also see that, like Ansible, so it's gonna show me all the commands as well. So it pretty much works with all the commands that is there technically in Linux machine. Not just Ansible, you can also just do normal general command. Like you want to know what are the things you can do with ls command, you can also do that, just ls, and it's gonna show you all the commands that you can use, ls command. And not just ls, anything, just think of it, anything. And if you just only do curl.chat.sh, it's gonna show you that what are the things that you can actually do.